Histrionic personality disorder is a condition characterized by an extreme need to be the center of attention, theatrical behavior, and excessive emotional expression. A person with this personality trait constantly seeks validation of their attractiveness, approval, and interest from those around them. Their identity is not based on internal coherence, but on external reactions. To exist, they must be seen. This personality type is often mistaken for natural openness or extroversion, but the difference lies in a deeply rooted emotional dependency. The histrionic individual does not merely enjoy company, they need it to maintain their self-esteem. Their behavior is marked by exaggeration, flirtation, emotional instability, and drama. Emotions are shallow but expressed with intensity. Laughter quickly turns into tears, joy into despair. At the core of the histrionic personality lies a deep need to be loved and recognized, often stemming from a childhood in which love was conditional, dependent on charm, obedience, or fulfilling expectations. In adulthood, this results in difficulties forming authentic, deep relationships, because every interaction becomes a stage on which the role of seducer, victim, or hero must be played. It is a personality entangled in the illusion of closeness. A histrionic person can form connections very quickly, but struggles to maintain them at a level of real intimacy. Behind the facade of charm lies a fear of rejection and a sense of emptiness that can never truly be filled. Because every relationship is a means to an end, not an end in itself. Being in a relationship with someone who has histrionic personality disorder is an intense experience, full of emotions, seduction, drama, and constant twists. At the beginning, it may resemble a romance with a movie hero, charismatic, charming, and entirely focused on the other person. The histrionic partner may shower their partner with attention, compliments, and affection, creating the impression of deep infatuation. This intensity can be deceptive, because although the relationship seems special, it primarily serves the purpose of fulfilling the histrionic person's need to be admired. Over time, the partner begins to notice that the relationship revolves around one person. The histrionic individual demands constant attention, quickly feels neglected or rejected, and reacts in an exaggerated way, even to minor signs of distance. Every day can turn into an emotional spectacle, from euphoria to despair, from tenderness to blame. If they do not receive enough attention, they may provoke conflicts or create dramatic scenes to return to the center of focus. Closeness with a histrionic person is superficial. It appears deep, but lacks genuine emotional exchange. When the partner tries to talk about difficult feelings or set boundaries, they are met with incomprehension, hurt, or theatrical reactions. Any attempt at confrontation may be perceived as an attack, any criticism as rejection. The relationship becomes a stage for the constant reinforcement of the histrionic person's self-worth, while the partner becomes the recipient of their moods and needs. Jealousy and competition are common elements in the relationship. The histrionic person does not just want to be loved, they want to be exceptional, the most attractive, and irreplaceable. When someone else receives attention, this can trigger dramatic scenes, accusations of infidelity, or attempts at emotional manipulation. The relationship becomes an emotional roller coaster, alternating between closeness and rejection. Partners of histrionic individuals often feel exhausted, tired from constantly meeting emotional needs and from the lack of reciprocity. They lose their own sense of identity and subordinate themselves to the moods and expectations of the other. The relationship with a histrionic person can become addictive, because behind the drama lies passion, behind the chaos, a deep need for love. But only the realization that this is conditional love allows one to see what they are truly trapped in. The diagnosis of histrionic personality disorder is based on the assessment of enduring patterns of behavior, emotional expression, and interpersonal relationships that emerge in early adulthood and persist across various areas of life. The key diagnostic criteria are outlined in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the American Classification of Mental Disorders, and the ICD-11, International Classification of Diseases. A person may be diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder if they meet at least 5 of the following criteria, according to DSM-5. Feels uncomfortable when not the center of attention. Often behaves in a provocative or seductive manner in interpersonal interactions. Displays rapidly shifting and shallow emotions. Uses speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. Places excessive emphasis on physical appearance to gain approval. Exhibits theatricality, dramatization, and exaggerated emotional expression. Is easily influenced by others or by circumstances. Perceives relationships to be more intimate than they actually are. The diagnosis is not based on a single observation, but requires an in-depth clinical history, interviews with a psychologist or psychiatrist, and an evaluation of the person's functioning in different areas of life: work, relationships, emotions, and identity. It is essential to rule out other disorders, such as mood disorders, borderline personality disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder, which can present with similar symptoms. Histrionic personality disorder may also coexist with other conditions, further complicating the diagnostic process. The diagnosis should be made exclusively by a qualified mental health professional, not based on individual traits or observations, but following a thorough analysis of behavioral patterns and their impact on the affected person's life. Examples of individuals with histrionic personality disorder illustrate characteristic behavior patterns that appear in everyday situations. Although they may initially seem extroverted or emotionally vibrant, their actions often stem from a deep need to be the center of attention and to gain approval. 1. Sylvia, amateur theater actress. She always draws attention through her outfit, her behavior, her voice. During rehearsals, she dominates the room, flirts with the director, and dramatizes every critical remark. When she's not in the spotlight, she becomes irritable and may provoke an emotional scene. She talks about her past in a colorful, often exaggerated way, using language intended to evoke sympathy or admiration. Rafał, sales team leader. At the office, he is seen as charming and sociable, but his colleagues feel manipulated by him. He frequently changes his opinions, reacts dramatically to failures, and flaunts his achievements. In meetings, he behaves theatrically and diverts attention with anecdotes about himself. When someone else receives recognition, Rafał either questions that person's competence or withdraws in a showy manner. 3. Kasia, psychology student. During class, she dresses provocatively and flirts with the lecturers. She often talks about her emotional experiences in a dramatic and exaggerated way, but struggles to provide concrete details. She likes to emphasize that others are jealous of her. When she isn't the center of attention, she gets angry, cries, or starts talking about traumas to regain interest. 4. Michał, active on social media. He posts emotional content daily, photos from events and descriptions of his mental state. Any lack of reaction is perceived as personal rejection. He might publicly talk about his broken heart after a failed date. In real life, his relationships are short and intense, filled with flirtation and jealousy. These examples show how a person with histrionic personality disorder functions, often charming and outgoing on the surface. Yet beneath lies deep emotional instability, a fear of rejection, and a constant need for external validation of their self-worth. Therapy for individuals with histrionic personality disorder focuses on deepening self-understanding, learning emotional regulation, and building authentic relationships. These individuals often seek therapy when they experience relationship difficulties, emotional crises, or a sense of emptiness, especially when their behavior no longer brings the attention and recognition they expect. Individual therapy. The primary form of treatment is long-term psychotherapy. Psychodynamic therapy is particularly effective in helping patients understand the deep-rooted mechanisms of fear of rejection and emotional dependency. Cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on changing dysfunctional thought patterns and behaviors, such as excessive dramatization or emotional manipulation. A key goal is to gradually develop the ability to experience and express emotions in a coherent and realistic way. Therapeutic relationship. Histrionic individuals tend to idealize their therapist, seek emotional closeness, or attempt seduction. The therapist must be able to set clear boundaries and confront the patient's patterns while maintaining empathy and consistency. Over time, the patient can begin to distinguish true intimacy from theatrical expression. Pharmacological treatment. Medication is not the first line of treatment. However, short-term pharmacological support may be considered if comorbid mood or anxiety disorders are present. Support for family members. Family members and partners of individuals with histrionic personality disorder may experience an emotional roller coaster, ranging from seduction and drama to blame. It is important that they have access to psychoeducational resources and learn to distinguish the individual's actual emotional needs from manipulative behaviors. Family therapy or systemic counseling can be helpful, especially when relationships become codependent. Support goals. Develop realistic expectations of the relationship. Limit dramatization in communication. Strengthen self-esteem independently of external validation. Build an authentic self-image without excessive distortion. Develop empathy and the ability to listen to others. The therapeutic process can be challenging and requires patience. Histrionic individuals often discontinue therapy when they no longer feel like the center of attention. However, with the right support, their emotional functioning and the quality of their relationships can be significantly improved. Does a histrionic person really believe what they say, or are they just playing a role? In most cases, they do believe it, at least in the moment. They speak from emotional arousal rather than reflection. That's why they're often inconsistent and sometimes contradict themselves, but this is not done intentionally. For them, feelings are the truth, even if the facts don't support them. Why do they say such strange, exaggerated things? Because they're afraid of disappearing from view. For a histrionic person, being invisible means not existing. Dramatization, shocking statements, or emotional confessions are their way of gaining attention, of making someone stop and ask, "What's going on?" Can you have a normal conversation with them? Yes, but it requires patience and emotional distance. Instead of reacting to exaggerated words, it's more effective to focus on the emotions behind those words. It's not useful to correct every statement literally. What works better is recognizing what they truly feel and trying to reduce the emotional tension. Why do they make a big drama out of small things? Because they need intensity. Ordinary situations feel too quiet, too unremarkable, not alive enough. Drama is their natural environment. It makes them feel that something is happening, that they are alive, that they matter. Without that, they feel emptiness. Are such people bad or toxic? Histrionic individuals don't aim to hurt others. They hurt because they themselves are hurt inside. Their behavior may be difficult, but it stems from a fear of being invisible and worthless. Behind their theatrics lies a deep need to be seen and loved. It's not malice, but an inability to cope with emotions and fears. The histrionic personality is a way of life dominated by the need to be noticed and to experience emotional resonance with the surrounding environment. A person with this disorder cannot live in the shadows. Everything they do, say, and feel is directed toward a single goal: to be seen, admired, and loved. Emotions are loud, short-lived, and volatile. The lifestyle is seductive, sometimes provocative. Behavior is theatrical, often exaggerated. In relationships, they quickly spark interest. Charm, intensity, and openness are magnetic. But behind this attractive facade, depth is lacking. Their expressions are more a reflection of the need for a reaction than of authentic experience. Truth takes a backseat to effect. What matters is generating excitement, not necessarily being understood. The root of this lifestyle is fear, of indifference, loneliness, and the loss of significance. For the histrionic individual, not being noticed is an existential threat. This is why they do not shy away from exaggeration, drama, or provocation. Every reaction from others is proof that they still exist. Therapy helps break out of this trap, learning to express emotions without manipulating them, to seek closeness without seduction, and to build self-worth without constantly needing a mirror in the eyes of others. For those around them, it is important to remain calm, set clear boundaries, and not give in to emotional blackmail, but also to understand that behind the extroverted mask lies a deep need for acceptance and love.